Now I'm going to stop name dropping.
It's okay.
Hi, Cesar.
Hello.
Hi.
Cesar,
We were just getting to know Harlan a little bit.
Cesar,
Okay.
I didn't know why. Why didn't you do this? Like, why am I doing?
I didn't expect Lainey to pull you into this, but I'm glad she did.
We're talking all the time. That's funny.
Hi, Perry. Welcome.
Hi, Dave. Appreciate it.
Sure. What is Hippo?
Hippo is a home insurance company. We're what's sort of dubbed as insurtech. So if you're ever in the market for home or condo owners insurance, definitely give Hippo a look.
Sure. So you must have some advantages over the normal options.
Yeah, definitely some interesting ones. A lot of the quoting process is very much optimized by big data. We're able to sort of capture a lot of data sources. So usually buying home insurance is a pretty arduous process. You have to go through sort of a lot of steps.
Sure.
We're able to give you a quote within a few minutes, which is definitely sort of a big value prop for customers.
Sure is.
Yeah.
Well, more power to you. Hi, Alice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah. So we're just gonna talk as usual for 5 minutes to give people a chance to gather before we dive into the topic.
Mhm.
How's your generative design business going?
Who are
Allison?
you talking to?
Allison,
I know we're all
Sorry. Oh,
how's your generative design business going?
oh, it's great. We
Good.
have our pilot program we're launching now. Yeah.
Great. Well, we're looking forward to your presentation whenever you're ready to
Well-
co-present with one of the companies that you're serving.
Yeah. We're excited for the city to open up so we can maybe see everyone in person.
Right, right.
Be candid
That
with
would be
you,
great.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Hi,
like
Paul.
the little micro conversations aren't the same when it's, it's like gather and then there's like
Yeah.
2s and 3s all chatting and then we all start, it's like I've been getting into Clubhouse recently and it's the same kind of thing. You have to people are clapping with their unmute buttons, which is interesting because they don't want to verbally, cut through.
Right. So different. Yeah.
Interesting
Heard of that.
etiquette's evolving.
So welcome, Vishal.
Hello, thank you. Hi, I was off camera because I was like multitasking. I am actually in the office, so
Look at this guy, no mask in the
wow.
office.
we returned
wow.
back to work.
Come on, that's awesome.
When did you return back?
Well, I started doing this last week, like 2 to 3 days a week, and this week we have been asked to do it like more like 1 to 2 days a week. So today I asked my team to join us here. So we are about a handful, like a dozen of us here. But it was nice to see everyone after forever
Sure.
for the first time.
What's your role at HDR?
Senior project manager.
Well, that's why I recognize that office. I used to sit around the corner. Hi,
you did?
Jill. Sorry.
Did you see
She
her?
can't
She
hear.
is actually behind me.
Yeah,
That's
you could
Jill.
say hi. Yeah, she. That would be awkward. Okay.
She's actually coming to say hello.
Oh my gosh, this is awesome. I'm in San Diego
Someone's
now.
saying hello to you. Timothy.
Oh my gosh.
I
So
don't know
good
how
to
to
see
get-
you.
She's saying so good to see you. She can hear you.
So do you work on healthcare projects?
I was in San Francisco
we-
with HDR for 4 years. Yeah, amazing people over there. You're with an amazing group. Yeah.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, a different project pulled me to Los Angeles and I was exploring the construction side, doing kind of LED 500. It's a non-disclosure agreement, but and then I'm back in the architectural side now. And like you talk about meeting up in person, got onboarded with Gensler remotely. So the first time I met somebody was actually they came from their home in San Diego. We met up to shoot a video at my den here, and it was like, oh my gosh, high definition, what? A whole different experience when you know, it's like the ultimate high-speed internet. But yeah, it's definitely good to be in person if you can help it. So
Great. Okay, well, welcome, Lainey. Welcome,
Yeah.
Stephanie.
welcome
Um,
everybody.
My name is Dave Alpert. I'm the chair of the Design Tech Meetup group. So every Wednesday from 5 to 6, we meet to discuss a topic. And the topic this time is very timely because, as you know, in the state of California, many people are returning to work now. And as architects, we need to be concerned with this not only for our own workplaces, but for the workplaces of our clients who we're advising. So today we have an amazing panel. First of all, we have Hee-Jae Park of CBRE, and then we have Harlan Brum of Autodesk, and we have Timothy Halverson of Gensler. Now, what these three companies all have in common is they're the global leaders in their market segments. So this is pretty amazing. And we're going to start with Hee-Jae. Hee-Jae is going to give us kind of an overview of the return to work issues and trends and what she's seeing in her role in a consultant advising many companies across the country. Then Harlan is going to give us an overview of the design technologies that relate to the topic of return to work, and particularly the hybrid office. And then Timothy is going to share with us how Gensler is actually implementing design technology and addressing the trends. Okay, so let's start with Hee-Jae. Thank you very much.
Hi, all. I have the pleasure of kicking off our panel today. Today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the future of workplace. Everyone see my screen okay? Great.
Yes.
Just to introduce myself, I'm Hee-Jae Park. I lead our San Francisco workplace team at CBRE. We're a global team of 700 workplace strategists, occupancy planners, interior designers, and architects. Our team focuses on creating workplace solutions that are user-centric and aligning to business needs, data-driven, rooted in quantitative and qualitative research, and holistic. We're thinking about the workplace beyond physical space to include technology, brand, and policy. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the key trends we're seeing in the world of workplace. The pandemic has obviously fundamentally altered how we work and is going to have a lasting impact in how we design and operate workplaces now and in the future. Our team actively engages with clients in addressing the current challenges and creating data-driven strategies for both short and long-term planning. And in almost all of our conversations, we're discussing 4 key questions with our clients in regards to the return to the office. First, how will we work in the future? That's the big one, with the majority of employees conducting work away from the office at about 30% of their work week. Second, how is this going to impact my workforce? As employees, and I'm sure what we're hearing too, become less anchored to the office and their commutes, people are going to migrate to alternative markets as work becomes more decentralized and virtual. Then what does this mean for your workplace? Workplaces are going to begin to adopt new flexible strategies to reflect these workforce patterns and redefine what the purpose of the office is for their employees. And finally, what is the impact to your real estate portfolio? With all these changes, the workplace will begin to have a shifting landscape with more flexible and agile strategies. We have a close-knit group today, so I have some trends of these prepared, but if you have any questions throughout, feel free to jump on in and I'm happy to answer. In regards to working remotely, over the past 5 years, we've surveyed remote desires across organizations. The appetite for remote work is and has been increasing over the years. Post-COVID, we're seeing a hybrid workplace emerging as the preferred alternative, as current employees and future talent are going to expect flexibility in how and when their work gets done. While few want to work remotely full-time, even fewer want to work at the office full-time. And the vast majority want some sort of balance between both. And with remote work increasing, this means space utilization is going to decrease. Across industries, we saw before COVID, office utilization was about at 70%. So on any given day, your office is going to have 70% of its seats filled. We're predicting post-COVID, this is actually decreasing to about 30 to 50% on average. But that doesn't mean the office is going anywhere. It's still here to stay. With even the added flexibility, the office is going to need to be designed to support that flexibility and choice moving forward. We saw the shifting purpose is going to be evolved and driven by the primary reasons people want to come to the office. In our research, we've seen team connection, community, face-to-face collaboration as the main drivers. These have also been some of the greatest challenges through the remote working experience. In terms of actual planning for the future, one thing that's going to be driving a lot of this planning is going to be understanding how your people work for specific organizations. With those drivers and that new purpose of the workplace in mind, it's important to consider creating a workplace that reflects the work styles that are custom to the company. When segmenting work styles, we look at what people need to get their best work done. Here you can see our work location on the x-axis and collaboration style on the y-axis. These segments, co-creators, connectors, residents, and nomads are just examples, but we begin to illustrate in this matrix that the employee type that works 9 to 5, 5 days a week is, in the future, the anomaly. This really is not going to be the norm, and work styles have greatly accelerated into more hybrid office solutions. Approaching planning from this perspective of understanding the future employee work styles and requirements will allow you to have a better understanding of the office footprint and the appetite for changing workplace solutions and agile strategies like unassigned seating.
Excuse
So
me.
I've been talking a little bit. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Okay, so the
Sure.
information that you're sharing here might be of value to people to be able to refer to after the event tonight. So are these slides that you can make available to the attendees?
Yeah, I can absolutely share it to that group of registered guests.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I want to encourage everybody who's on the call, feel free to jump in, raise your hand. This is a participatory event. Thank you. I'm
curious. Yeah, no, Dave. I'm curious, in the future, would I'm going to have people use the reaction button on Zoom.
Okay.
If you feel like you want to work, let's say let's look at this example here on the screen. Co-creators, connectors, residents, nomads. If you think you are a co-creator, you spend most of your day collaborating. You want to be in the office maybe 2-3 days a week. Do a thumbs up. Okay, Tim started with a clap. All right, that's interesting. And then connectors. Let's say you don't need the office though. You still want to work from home. You want to work from a co-working studio, maybe a cafe. Let's see a reaction. Is there anyone that feels like they want to be in the office around 4 or 5 times a day, and they really need the office, and that's the only place they can work? No one. And that's really what we're here to talk about, because that's really what we're seeing. And with even just our group, we can see that model is no longer going to be a solution in how we design, and that's really going to have to shift. So what is this all going to look like then? Well, we're seeing 3 emerging schools of thought in terms of space layout and design. The first is the activity-based work neighborhood. This has come up over the last few years, ABW, after open plan offices got such a bad rep. Employees in this neighborhood style split time between home, the office, and engage in both individual and collaborative activities when they're there. They report to a neighborhood, so they're not just kind of wandering around the office looking for a seat. They have an assigned space with their function or any other related functions, and they have a choice-built environment for them that they have access to the spaces that they need to work. The second is based on that people are coming to the office for collaboration. It's a team-based work environment. Employees are coming to the office primarily to collaborate with their team on a specific task or project, and they mostly do individual work at home. They report to almost a war room or team build area shared with their project team with additional collaboration and social venues nearby. And the third is event-based work. Employees conduct most of their individual work at home and only come to the office primarily for larger events or larger event meetings. They spend most of their time in just meeting and social spaces, and they usually have a blocked out day that they're only coming to the office for. So all the points I mentioned today about remote working, flexible working, these agile strategies, it's to talk about creating a shift in landscape, about creating an impactful experience is going to be essential to the workplace of the future. Spaces are going to be needed to be thoughtfully designed to create a destination of choice for employees that offers them a different experience than working remotely does. As the overall footprint of offices shift, as that utilization shifts, we have to intentionally design creative and engaging spaces that offers the most compelling workplace experience. And that's all I have today.
That's a huge opportunity for the profession.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing so much change in the world of, I think even before the pandemic, there were a lot of people that said remote working isn't going to work, that you're not allowed to work remotely. That is a privilege, not a right. And that mentality has completely shifted, that now almost every employee is expecting some element of flexibility from their employer and workplace.
Great.
And so, PJ, I think what's really interesting is obviously as sort of the authority or a consultancy sort of focused on this, what is your team sort of adopting in terms of your work from office culture? And I think it's particularly interesting thinking specifically about sort of a consulting model in the way that you work. But yeah, what is your team sort of going to adopt?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. CBRE actually was a little ahead of the curve. So about 10 years ago, we started adopting unassigned environments completely. So from the CEO to the newly graduated college grad, no one has an assigned space across the company. And we have gone to the approach of every expiring lease becomes a activity-based work environment with unassigned seating. Most of all the offices in the perimeter are removed to be collaboration areas. So from boardrooms, our cafeteria, amenity spaces, and huddle meeting rooms, that's what really takes the prime real estate, and then divided into neighborhoods. We're seeing more, it's being really driven by work style that we talked a little bit about that team-based work, event-based work. We're seeing a lot of our tech clients start to think about this team-based work model, as so much of their work has less dependency on resources in the office and employee desire to not come in as much.
Any other questions before we move on and hear from Autodesk? Okay, we'll have a chance for questions in the end too. Okay, Harlan, over to you.
All right. Hold on. Let's just, hopefully everybody can see my screen.
Yep.
Good. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the technology that's going to support hybrid work, I think, in my opinion, and give you guys a little bit of an overview of what I think is going to be impactful going forward. I'm a product manager with Autodesk, so I've been with Autodesk about 15 years now. I focus primarily on Revit, and I focus on architects and architecture. So that's kind of my role at the company. You may see me in AMAs and Revit questions. If you have them later, feel free to contact me. We're going to kind of not talk about Revit at all really today. So that'll be kind of fun, I hope, for most of you. So the first thing I want to start with is, the office, the original office, and just kind of say, like, can you imagine Michael Scott in a remote work situation and trying to handle that? I don't know if we're ever going back to the days of, this office. And I think that's really important to kind of set the context here that, the office is forever going to be different. And what we've learned through the pandemic is that, the things and the technology that we're using now is really going to continue and probably just get even more complex as we go. So I'm going to take you through 3 different parts. I'm going to talk about software. I'm going to talk about data because it's so critical to this overall experience. And I'm going to talk a little bit about hardware, particular computer hardware, graphics hardware, that kind of thing, just to kind of lay the groundwork. And then at the end, I have a little bit of technology advice, just the things to keep in mind as you yourselves and your companies are kind of navigating this space and what you need to worry about. Because there's a lot going on. There's no way I can cover everything in 10 minutes. So this is going to be pretty high level. So let's talk about software first. And these are, icons. I bet you every single one of you have used maybe every single one of these applications, right? Everybody, you want to raise your hand if you haven't used one of these? Like, I would be seriously shocked if anybody didn't. Okay, Zoom, we have WebEx, we have Google Meet. We were just on that earlier, right before this call. Things like Trello to manage work, Microsoft Teams, Slack, Mural, which is a virtual whiteboarding tool, which is actually great for running kind of brainstorming type sessions. These technologies, while the pandemic has kind of amplified their usage by far because everybody's at home, they existed before. So there's no reason not to believe they're going to exist as we go forward. And they're going to become more and more critical, especially when, like EJ said, talking about lots of people not being in the office when you're in the office. Don't expect these things to just disappear because you're now working in the office, but your coworkers aren't. Guess what you're going to be doing? Sitting on Zoom, having conversations remotely and doing the same things you've been doing, just in a different situation. The other thing, though, in particular for our space that's really becoming prevalent is new technologies that focus on outcomes. And in particular, I know we have some folks on the call that these are going to look very familiar to them. We have generative design, which really is all about how do you capture better outcomes. So today that becomes in sharp relief when you're talking about just office layout, right? How are we going to redesign the office, get these people to have seats that are going to work, space them appropriately, everybody still have access to windows and light, and making sure that we're designing in a way and producing options. That automation technology is going to continue to grow and become more and more prevalent just from a space layout perspective. Then you have to worry about things like air quality. So we're seeing CFD technology in particular really pick up, where people can analyze, how's the air blowing out of my face into somebody else's face? How far do they need to be away? Is the heating and cooling system adequate to cool this place and heat it like you would normally think of? But also, if there's an issue, actually, can we mitigate a problem that's going to come up? And the last piece is something that has, also been around for a while, but has really started to pick up. And that's mobility simulation. The idea that you can actually simulate how do people move, walk, and interact in a building. And there's technology across the board for all of these things, not just for Autodesk. Autodesk has tools in all these areas, obviously, but so do a lot of other companies, all kind of investing in this particular area because it's so relevant to actually producing good buildings. The idea isn't that we're just going to, simulate and make sure we understand things. It's actually being more outcome driven in the approaches that we have. So that one, you can walk your clients through and actually demonstrate to them before you're building something, hey, this is going to actually work and I can prove it to you. It's going to be a huge trend as we move forward. So let's talk a little bit about data, because the underpinnings of all this stuff, from Zoom to generative design to interactivity, just moving data between applications, it all comes down to how can you efficiently manage data and your people's access to data. And this is where there's kind of 2 separate approaches, I would say. You can move data to the person, or you can actually take the person and move them to the data. And what I mean by this is technology in this example, like remote desktop, where you're literally remoting into a virtual machine. And I bet you, how many of you are in that environment right now, having to remote in somewhere else to actually get your job done, not local, Maybe you could do it on an iPad now. It's great, right? Like I can actually sit on my couch, remote into a machine, and do work on Revit. I don't know why you would want to do that on that screen, but you can. And that ability is directly counter, though, to this approach of actually moving the data to the customer. This is where like I'd install everything locally, but I'm accessing something like Dropbox or something like OneDrive, or in the case that I'll talk about in a second, our cloud offering from Autodesk, our what we call the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And what makes it unique for AEC, and what I would tell you that Dropbox and Box and OneDrive and SharePoint are all great solutions for moving the data to the user. But AEC is slightly different in a lot of cases, right? We still have to move files around often at a very base level, but we're doing it in a way that spans lots of different project phases, lots of different stakeholders, and that becomes very, very complicated very, very quickly. The amount of people, the amount of data, and the amount of idiosyncrasies about that data. How do you interact with it? How can you read and write it? It doesn't all work like a Word document, unfortunately. So we have to think through what does that look like? And that's where solutions like from Autodesk comes in, where we talk about our construction cloud. And this is the idea that it connects desktop applications like Revit and Civil 3D and AutoCAD to the cloud, allows you to do cloud-based things like view and markup and have people comment and understand what's happening, do clash detection, and then also be able to access that on any device anywhere that you are, so that you can actually see and design review. And again, Autodesk isn't the only solution in this space, but it's a trend that you're going to continue to see these cloud-based solutions that are managing data, because it's so critical and so bespoke to the AEC process overall. So hardware is ever changing and interesting, but I figured it's good to have just a couple of slides. This is the traditional mindset that we probably have had for a long time when it comes to computer hardware. You have desktops, we have laptops, now we have tablets and mobile devices. These things aren't going away. The technology is evolving rapidly, though. Things like the M1 Max, ARM-based processors are totally changing the game when it comes to computing power in general. x86 is kind of at the end of its life in some respects. And we're starting to see low power PCs, low power devices kind of take hold. And I think none of that can actually be articulated better than something like the Oculus Quest, or the Quest 2 in this case. The Quest 2, if you're not familiar with it, this is a super low cost. Actually, it's like $399, so cheaper than your cheapest tablet, pretty much, from Apple, and actually gives you a full VR experience. And you're starting to see new experiences and new uses in all industries. This is not just a gaming thing. Everybody looks at this originally like it's a toy, like it's just going to be for people, to pretend to be boxing or something, which is great. It's fun. I do Beat Saber on it as well, just like everybody. But the real power here is the ability to have an immersive design experience and a review experience with people who aren't located in the same room as you. So the ability to actually pop on a headset and, like with Resolve, which is one of our partners, to actually look at how can you actually be in the same space as someone else, looking at the same thing, following them around the building at a, kind of top-down view, or zooming way in, one-to-one scale, and actually understanding it. And there's new technology that's just come out in their version 1 called Archeo, which is another one I'll just mention. It's really very interesting because it's actually a design tool. It is a creative massing block design tool that interacts with things like Rhino and SketchUp and Revit that allow you to go back and forth between your main design application and a immersive VR environment. Really interesting, allowing you to have multiple people collaborating, designing, editing, all at the same time, and even just for reviewing, right? Because you can bring models in from all sorts of places, it lets a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing normally on a computer or in our professional design applications to pick up a couple of controllers, or in the Quest 2's case, hand controls, which is really interactive, right? Just using your fingers to interact with something becomes extremely compelling and interesting overall. And there's just going to be more of this. This is really the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this. We haven't even gotten to we've gotten to some cool AR related technology, right? Like the HoloLens 2, but there's a lot more places that we can go. And I think you're going to start to see more and more professional applications. In fact, what we're seeing today is a lot of the hardware vendors that aren't Facebook and aren't the Quest 2 focus on the enterprise environment, things like the Hive Pro. You're seeing devices that are being purpose built for companies to get real work done, not just play games. And I think you're going to continue to see that. And this in particular is going to have a big impact on office space, because you can think like, well, do I need a desk? Or do I need a space that's safe instead, right? Do I need a padded room to be able to do this so I don't run into walls? You get the whole bunch of new things, new problems start to open themselves up when you start thinking about VR in particular. The other big change though, and you guys know this is actually my office. This is where I'm standing right now. I'm at a standing desk though, so it's height adjustable, and I don't have a Coke. I have a water on the desk. But this environment is not unusual today, right? I don't know, probably some of you who've done, I do a lot of video calls. And so, yeah, I have two big flat lights. I have the acoustic sound batting behind me. I got a big microphone. This is not though that unusual. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people with setups that aren't this different. Do you think I want to go back to the office with this setup at my desk? No, this is actually great, right? This is a really productive space. And you can imagine as employees move back to the office, the demands are going to change on what is expected, right? The comfort that's there, the types of hardware you have access to, the types of use that you have. But not only that, you have to now start interacting virtually in the office, right? It's not going to be just face-to-face when you're in the office. It's going to be, in a lot of cases, maybe you're going to be doing a live Zoom meeting with people while you're in the office and having to actually have a setup that's not that much dissimilar, right? A studio environment where people can come in and start talking and actually share that information virtually. So this is the other thing that I think is going to be really compelling across all technology spaces. The demand for that studio environment, the ability to actually have good lighting, good sound, good acoustics is actually going to become more and more prevalent in the office space. It's not going to be okay anymore to put on noise canceling headphones and zone out at your desk in an open environment, because everybody's going to have to be on a call. They're going to be talking to a team member who's not there that day, who's driving somewhere else, or it's not their day in the office. Unless you could literally get everyone to take only the 3 days, which I think is going to be a nightmare for anyone to try to get everyone in the office the same exact 2 or 3 days. You're going to have this issue of trying to plan for spaces that need to be flexible in general, but also fit these virtual needs. So to end this up, I just have a few little comments about advice for everybody when they start thinking about technology. And the first one is stay up to date. So the first thing to keep in mind when it comes to technology is don't ignore updates. And this has multiple impacts. It's not just about features and getting latest functionality, which is great. It actually has to do with security. You've probably seen a ton of things in the news recently about security vulnerabilities, ransomware attacks. And the main problem that happens is that people let things lag and they go out of date. And the reality with software development today in particular is that things don't get discovered right away. Things happen and people hack them and come up with workarounds or come up with exploits that have to get patched. And the only thing that protects you is to stay up to date and stay patched. Having good antivirus today, I would say, is kind of laughable, honestly, because it's not, you don't have to worry about that kind of thing more often than not. What you have to worry about is things that are being taken advantage of in the software that from day one have been there, but developers are constantly patching and updating. So staying up to date, looking at, the benefits of web-based interfaces and web-based applications can't be undersold in a lot of ways because they're always up to date. You don't have to worry about, oh, I'm going to this app and something's wrong with it because they're going to fix it, right? Desktop software, though, is still a huge part of everyone's ecosystem, including Autodesk's. And so keeping those updates, keeping things running is going to be really, really critical, not just for stability and performance and features, but just security overall and being safe. The second point is about money. This is a big one for AEC in general. This is a challenge we've seen over and over again. I can tell you from Revit-based experience, like our top used machines are old. They are conservatively, some of them 10 years old in a lot of cases. And so what that does is it means that, again, you're vulnerable to things that you may not expect. And things aren't just going to run the way they intended to be run. 10 years ago, Windows 10 didn't exist, for example, and is a totally different ball of wax when you're dealing with an older operating system, older hardware, and having to deal with it. So it's really important not to sacrifice because of the current upfront cost of something, because that machine, it's cost $3,000 for a new desktop. We can't afford to do that, right? But the problem is you're going to lose all that money later anyways, because of other problems that you're going to run into. And you're much better off actually getting the productivity benefits, staying up to date, staying current by having a good technology strategy that doesn't shy away from the fact that, yes, these things do cost money and are going to continue to cost money. This is not the day of drafting tables and pencils anymore. Our pencils are constantly changing, and you have to keep that in mind. And then the last point I'll make is around people. This one in particular, it's funny, I talk about technology all the time, but I think the people aspect of technology implementation, technology use is super underrated. And what I mean by that is, in most cases, when it comes to security incidents, it's not the software, it's not the hardware, it's the people. It's social engineering attacks. Scammers don't make money because people have great technology blocking them. No, they make money on people because they call you up and they fake to be someone they're not. And that happens in the corporate world a ton. So your biggest vulnerabilities in a lot of cases when it comes to technology use on that side is about the people. And so you have to be able to educate and trust your people at the end of the day, and make good decisions that can impact everyone. So I think you're also going to see policies like bring your own device become much more prevalent than it ever was before. And how do you implement those in a system that makes sense? How do you plan an office space when you don't know what people are going to have, right? What they're going to, because you're going to have a whole variety of things going on. The ability for us to look at this from a people perspective is extremely important in the long run. And any technology we look at really won't matter if the technology doesn't work or if the people don't know how to use it. But at the end of the day too, you can have really successful things happen when even you don't have the technology at play. So this story is kind of relevant because I was picturing Michael Scott in the situation when I had this boss. But 10 years ago, I had a boss who he insisted everybody be in the office for meetings, in particular for all hands meetings. Like, we get this big group together, we'd be all in the same room, even though there was a conference call and we'd be dialing in and people would be calling in on the phone all the time. He insisted he was there, he'd be up in front of the room talking. And then he got reassigned to China. Actually, he got asked to move to China for 2 years. And he went away for China and did his thing. And 2 years later, he came back. And the first time he came back, he held an all hands, basically a couple months in. And a complete 180 changed. Even though the room was still the same, he was still the same. He basically said, nope, I won't be there. We were like, what? What do you mean you won't be there? You've been insisting forever like that we do this and that, we're all together. He's like, no. I'm presenting. I can't be in the room because it's not fair to everyone else. And from that point on, he actually would park himself in an office by himself on a headphone with a computer on the phone and call in while everybody else was 4 doors down in a conference room listening in. And the reality was, he learned that while in China, he was always remote. He was always the guy outside of the big room having to figure out what was happening. And he learned, I don't like the way that makes me feel. And I don't like the way that treats everyone else who's virtual on the call. And I want to even the playing field. And even though it was always on the phone, we didn't have Zoom. We had sharing and stuff, but it was 10 years ago, so it was okay. Sometimes it would be like, well, you're going to share the slides. I need somebody to share the slides in the room and follow along while I'm on the phone. And it was a complete 180 switch just because of his experience. And I think that's going to happen in the technology space as well. I think what you're going to see is, even though we have these great collaborative spaces, the fact is that people need to feel like they belong in that space and that they're part of the team. And when you're disconnected and virtual, the only way to do that is to try to level the playing field as much as you can. So you're going to start to see the technology not be in the way, but help to facilitate more and more the idea that we're all in this together and virtual. So that's what I've got today. Questions?
Is there any time for me?
I have some questions, but I want to let Tim go.
That was great.
Okay, so please jump in, Tim, and then we'll have questions at the end.
Okay. Mine hopefully won't sound like exactly the same thing. My goal is to try to integrate what we've been talking about. So Harlan hit a lot of really big topics. Hijay had some beautiful floor plans, and we talked about the big concepts in the context. And I think really what I'm going to try to do is show some of our photography from real projects
Mm.
and then talk on top of it, as well as a bit of sketching I did in PowerPoint. So don't judge me.
Awesome.
But okay, so let's get to it.
So please leave like 5 minutes at the end.
Of course. Yeah, mine will be quick based on the
Okay.
fact that I don't want to be as redundant.
Okay.
Okay, can you see?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay,
Perfect.
wonderful. And go away, Zoom. Okay. All right. So yeah, basically a couple concepts that a lot of our designers are working on is, and I'm sure you're familiar with this area, but is the 20-minute city. And like we talked about, people are working remotely. So what used to be a job center in our main cities are now people accessing all that from their homes. We know this to be true, but it's really interesting to start thinking about this. And what's driving, the new boundaries is I want to be local. I want to be within 20 minutes of all the amenities I need. And like we talked about, breaking down that traditional 8 to 5 is definitely happening. But especially with the work culture being more global, I've had calls where I'm up at 7 a.m. so I can connect with someone in Singapore, where it's actually 10 p.m. their time. And I still need to connect with them, and that's part of my job. So I need to restructure my schedule to be available for that connection, right? So, and Harlan mentioned this as well, that key big idea is access, bringing the user to the data rather than the data to the user. We see this in virtual, machines, computers, right? Every digital screen we have becomes a window into this digital world, right? And then obviously security is an issue, because if everyone's accessing it, I won't go off on security, but right, we have access into that place. And what we're seeing too, obviously, is with fiber optic networks becoming more prevalent, gig speed internet, where fiber optic allows you the same download speed as upload speed. We're pushing video and models and all kinds of data up to the cloud. Having this type of connection is going to continue to be very valuable and save a ton of time. Um, and then that's going to be a key hardware piece with working from home. Um, and then persistence, again, that sort of central source of data. But we can continue to expect this as a trend no matter what tool we're using. We saw this with PowerPoint. We mentioned Trello. That there's SharePoint hosting the files, and we can all edit collaboratively at the same time. And it's like, in the past, we never expected PowerPoint to have that capability. BIM 360 to host our design models. We mentioned Trello earlier for tasks. And generally speaking, there's this available digital landscape that we can now tap into to do our work. And so what's exciting about this is it's eliminating so much of the coordination based tasks that would just basically be the digital equivalent of pushing paper around. So now that's all consolidated, we have more bandwidth, right? We're not having decision fatigue. We have more time to focus on what really matters, which is design. Again, we're using BIM 360 heavily. I'm on a project that's implementing it extensively. Every single model's on there. We have over, 200 people on 16 different projects, and all the sub-consultants, all the architects, multiple offices, multiple sites. It's very robust. And also, like Harlan mentioned, accessing that from any digital window or device you have, whether it's a tablet or a computer, has proven to be amazing for our clients as well as our leadership, to be able to, if they're on a plane or if they're on a train or if they're just at home, they can download a copy of the latest model, review that, mark it up, provide comments, and actually have ongoing awareness of what the design progress has been while we're going through the process. So they don't have to wait for a sort of QC window to provide those comments. They can insert and feel a deeper sense of ownership over the design while we're going. And obviously, like I mentioned, just coordinating across multiple offices, it's a hard thing to do. But through this connectivity, it's much easier because we can communicate through the model, and how we're providing those comments, how we're understanding that is really the trick to make it work. So I'll just kind of put some pictures up here and talk through what we're doing here. You may be familiar with this project. We developed it for NVIDIA down in Santa Clara, but we talked about the neighborhood with Hijay. And what you can see here isn't just a corporate environment. We have spaces to drop in, spaces to eat, maybe soundproofed furniture. We have reading happening here. There's a whiteboard over here. And what I think is really interesting is this person walking, you have sight lines across the entire landscape, right? So you can have that serendipity where you catch someone, you catch their eye, and then you remember that that person's a subject matter expert in something that applies to your project. You jump in for a quick 5-minute chat, and you can have the benefit of being in the office. And so, like we were talking about, what I really want to emphasize is when we suddenly have access to everything, what do we prioritize? And that what I want to emphasize there is it's expertise, right? It's because there's so much information, we can't possibly know it all at the same time. So yes, there's some stuff we have to all keep up to date with, but also how are we tapping into our, you know, resilience to sustainability experts, our lighting designers, our interiors, and bringing that all together in a cohesive way. Here's another example, just of a kind of mixed space where we have a kitchen connected with an island. We have someone working right here. We have meaningful meetings happening here. And I think what's drawing this together isn't, hey, I have a space to do heads down work. Instead, I have a space to make meaningful conversations and share knowledge, right? And there's so much you can pick up based off of just nonverbal cues, right? So what we've seen is a shift, and this is a worse diagram than what TJ provided. However, we've seen a shift away, and what we labeled it was concentration work or heads down work, co-creation space where you get around an island, you mark things up, you think about it together. Connection, that might be your islands, your kitchen, or spaces to develop inspiration. And it shifted to be much more about the types of collaborative spaces, the unique spaces that spark that inspiration, and get you thinking differently. So we're going to see a huge drop in those. This is our version of activity-based layouts, right? Where it focuses on co-creation, connection spaces that may look something like this. I'm mindful of time, so let me just try to keep clicking along here. So here's an example, right? Here's a space. We have this whiteboard, but the meaning of multimedia has expanded. So I just kind of overlaid some sketches on this for how this could be adapted for future use. We could consider incorporating um, multiple different cameras that people can choose which one they are focusing on at a given point, tapping in from a different office or a different location. So you have one looking at the plans, maybe it's a drawing, or being an in-room participant to read nonverbals and analog drawings, or to even read the reactions of people that are also on the design team and how they're reacting to the design progression. And they can toggle between these modes. And then we mentioned Miro earlier, having that ability to have an infinite whiteboard, right? So it's not constrained to have to erase that and then move it around. What's cool we've seen in our projects is these evolve for months, even over a year at a time, and we see the entire story of a design progression in one spot. So no longer are you printing on the printer and throwing it away and then forgetting what happened and have more people join the project later. We see sort of a way to maintain the design intent throughout the entire process, which has been super valuable from a creative standpoint. And then, like I mentioned, with those activities and the subject matter expertise, now the question isn't who's in the office, but who's the right person to weigh in on this conversation and get them in the room. So what I've seen too, also with BIM 360, right? This is just kind of a snippet of one of our projects. We can, again, access that, view that. Everyone has the ability to tune in and walk around, but we can see that whether it's a digital whiteboard or a smaller window like your laptop. But what I'm most excited about is something like the HoloLens 2 connected with software such as Mindesk, Iris VR, Fuser, or even Spectar. We've been seeing this for design process as well as on the job site, where people can put a hard hat on and have that augmented reality glasses interacting with a model that this would be persistent, right? It sits in connected to physical space, but no matter what vantage point you have looking around it on an island, it's persistent, right? It knows that it's living on the desk, even though it's a digital object. So this is another example of persistence showing up. And so how we start to blend our workflows together, and think about what is the activity, what is the outcome, what is the stage of development we're at. That's really what drives all of this at the end of the day. So final thought here is, like, I just want to reemphasize, in-person office space remains vital. That's this bullet point down here. The shift is really moving towards prioritizing deep, intentional collaboration rather than heads down production work. And so how do we create spaces for serendipity, inspiration, right? And all these different things. And so we've done a lot of implementations with digital dashboards that connect, it's a communal experience that helps you understand your organization better, right? Or the sun or the light, there's different ways to understand things. And if I could see this from across the room, then maybe that sparks a conversation that wouldn't have happened otherwise. And we've also seen some interaction where we have like a camera attached to the screen here, and it's responding to this wall. So where are the opportunities to mix, where you don't require a headset, but you can actually have a digital wall that's interacting with you? So we're really exploring a lot of these different implementations to enhance how we work when you're in the office. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities right now, and just our shared activities is always what brings us together. Even when we were kids skateboarding, now what are the new activities that are required of us in the modern workforce? That's the real question to answer. So yeah, if you want to learn any more, we've got a full report on all of this for post-COVID world strategies. Just head over to gensler.com/webinars, or just get in touch with me after the call. So yeah, time for questions
Super.
today.
Super. So thank you, Tim. Thanks to all the co-presenters. And just like I asked TJ about her slides being available to attendees afterwards, is the same true for you, Harlan and Tim?
I will ask my PR department.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, there's no
But I
obligation.
realized I moved really fast because there's a lot to cover. It's just kind of, what does it look like? And I'm actually curious to have the conversation now for the last 9 minutes because, we say Miro, but then even when we have licenses for Miro, how are we using Miro?
Right.
That's where my space comes in, which is teaching people to get hands-on and harnessing the power of all this. You mentioned the social piece. That's my primary role at Gensler, is interconnecting people through the technology and applying it on projects, so that we don't just say data and we show flashy pictures to clients to win work. We actually use it as part of a performance-based, outcome-driven, design process that really performs. So there's a lot. We just skim the surface. Digital queuing, check-in, check-out at the office is interesting. We haven't touched on that. How do you know if someone's in the office, not tracing their every step, but actually, are they present or not present? So curious to see what your questions are, everybody, and we can have some talk.
Okay, who wants to start with questions, please?
I have a question for both of you. In terms of, I feel like you presented a lot of great technology that solves for a lot of the questions and challenges that people are having. Something that I see a lot from our clients is that they want to future-proof their offices and integrate technology, but what they're working with is they're just installing Zoom rooms. They don't even have video conferencing. How do you push the envelope in that dialogue when you're talking about technology to encourage people, but also illustrate and get people to where they're thinking about some of these future challenges when they are a little further behind?
I can jump on it for 1 minute. Yeah, so I go back to your quad diagram with the roles and the activities and who is in what position. And I think what's interesting now is there's a lot of hybrid skills, right? People's passions are tying in with their work, and people are finding new ways to contribute. So through the lens of an activity-based or an outcome-driven operating structure, right? It's harder to find, here's our role and here's what we do. I think if you encourage, what is the benefit of cross-pollinating ideas? What is the benefit of the activities we're doing? How are we creating a culture of innovation? and how wired we are emotionally to respond to each other's facial features, right? I may be this animated on the phone, but I use my hands a lot, and I'm very, I just communicate this way, and that's who I am. So if I wasn't on video, that'd be a problem. And so I think it's how do you actually best communicate, and whether that can be handled with a text message or it needs to be an email or it should be a video call. It's not any one answer. It's providing all the options and then letting people optimize, their sort of work styles within that. I mean, it's hard because people want to save money, but at the same time, especially in a creative firm, we really have to give people, the options to optimize their own design process.
Yeah, I would just say, I think to end on that, Timothy, you made a good point. Like the ability for people to be flexible really needs to be considered as part of this. Like, if technology is going to change, like if they're trying to like future proof from a technology perspective, it's kind of like, well, everybody probably knows when, it was a big deal to hardwire LAN networking through your whole office. Right now, that's almost a waste. That was a waste because you just have Wi-Fi everywhere. So the answer of like, who knows what the future is going to be is what I would say. Really? Like, I don't know. And I've been doing this a while now. Like it is what it is. And I think what really needs to happen is people need to think about flexibility and multi-purpose in what they do and how they work. Like spaces, in general need to be thought of as flexible and changing, and that they can be adjusted easily instead of, building walls everywhere. Think about how we can leverage that actually, like office furniture technology, even to make things more flexible for everyone. Because you're right, like who knows where you're going to be. I mean, I saw the other day, like the presence conversation, Timmy, you mentioned, like I have a light actually on my door in my office because let my wife know I'm on the call. Like those types of things are going to become more and more prevalent, right? To let people know, even in a space, even a physical space, like I'm around and you can talk to me. I think that those types of things are going to continue to evolve for sure. So change is constant.
Yeah, Carlin, I want to build a little bit on what you just said about having a light on the door to your office at home. We've been talking a lot about what is the workplace away from home going to be like. And it used to be, if we were designing for a client, all we had to design was the workplace away from home. But now, if most of the workforce might be spending most of their time in their home office, what responsibility do we take for that environment? Because there are security issues, ergonomics issues, equipment issues. What do we do?
Well, the way I think designers, I mean, this is my opinion. So I think you need to start thinking about when you're designing the office, who's not going to be there.
Yeah.
And not just the people who are there, but thinking about the people that are actually going to be interacting with the people in that office are not going to be local. And how do you start to design that space to make everyone feel like they belong? Because I don't think architects can plan someone's home office, right? We have so many people who after a year and a half have been sitting on their couch, right? And like, you're never going to get away from that kind of like doing that. But I think offices, like we've seen our tech group at Autodesk try to like tell you how to do ergonomics and making sure you do self-assessments to make sure you're good. And I think that's stuff employers will do. But at the end of the day, for architects in particular, we have to expand from thinking about just the people in the office at that time and what they're doing, and start thinking holistically about the workforce and who's going to be interacting with the people that are there and that aren't there, so that they still feel included. I think that's the thing that we're going to, like, over time is going to become more and more critical. Or what's going to happen is everyone's just going to go back to work the way it was because they will feel they don't belong, right? It's very easy when you're the guy, one person remote and everybody else is local or having a great conversation, to feel disconnected, and then to feel pressure to see like, well, I got to be back. I got to go to the office next time. And then you're just perpetuating that over and over again. So like, there's a real, I hope that doesn't happen, but I see that writing on the wall. Like it could very easily start to just come back to normal with a little bit of flexibility. They'll say, you know, businesses will say they're flexible, but in the end of the day, they might push that way. So we have to be kind of aware of that if we want people to be able to be remote. I mean, that's going to be the big question.
And we're really seeing this as an ecosystem of spaces. And we've seen this really illustrated during the pandemic People were working out of RVs while going road tripping across the country, for example. Like, it's no longer the office and a little bit of the home. It's everywhere in between. Airports, travel, co-working spaces, cafes. You have to be able to create a work culture environment in addition to your physical space design that allows you to have those hybrid behaviors that are going to be able to run a successful organization.
I just want to add to that, EJ, because I know we're running out of time, but I'm happy to stay on for a couple more minutes if you guys want. I just know, like, with the digital dashboards and the sort of window you might add to on top of a wall where it's augmenting it without the headset, and then tying that with presence, right? Where am I actually, right? Am I online? Am I outside at the corner cafe? And not to, because then it blurs the line with, well, how do you know that? And people are asking, well, can I track where you're at? And obviously that's a huge red flag where people are saying, get a heck away from me, and they throw everything out. So, how do you actually, in a really constructive way, make yourself available, and everyone can opt in to making themselves available when they're online, and then through who they are as a person, what they bring to the organization, maybe we have a communication device that is on a wall that people can reference and check. Hey, oh, they're in today, cool. Now there's that serendipity to meet up with them spontaneously, and it's more intuitive to kind of understand, I'm online, and it's not just because I walked away from my mouse for a minute and Teams said I'm away. There's like, I'm making the choice to say I'm online and available to collaborate with people, right? So I think, again, thinking not just by default, looking around the room, okay, I'm just going to talk with whoever I see. How do we actually see people is the interesting question, because it was through our eyes this way, but now we have different ways to see, and that's where we're seeing a trend up with data visualization and tracking and making constructive, useful dashboards that help that conversation.
If I may add a comment there,
Mhm.
you just make me think about how the pandemic accelerates. As the pandemic accelerates, most digital platform to go on the cloud, it has certainly facilitated the transition of data, or the transition of data out of localized networks to cloud repository. But it has also created a big challenge, because the notion of a centralized source of truth for design decision is becoming a little less obvious. I mean, Harlem just showed the myriad of different platform of communication and collaboration that we use, all of them containing a little piece of truth in the process of decision making, from Mural to cloud rendering to authoring on the cloud, through Slack, through Teams, where the final source of truth reside. And so I think this notion of moving away from a central server to a decentralized and integrated system of decentralized information, it's something that technology company needs to start seriously looking how to connect, make sure that information travel in a validated format all across, so that we don't, I mean, our digital space is not messy.
Yeah.
It's an organized chaos. in a different.
Yeah, and I can't wait for, there's like 5 CDs. Everybody talks about common data environment, but the reality is there's a bunch of them. Or digital twin, right? Where there's a Kelly Cohn, who's a guy we work with, it's digital quintuplets more than it is anything, right? It's not one model of truth, there's multiple. And yeah, I think that's going to be a big deal, is how does the industry itself start to actually align itself so that it can communicate better. In particular, like open standards is something that, there's a huge amount of topic around, but I think it starts to go beyond that, because how do you actually consolidate this stuff? So like you said, either have some sort of truth at the end of the day that isn't scattered amongst 5,000 tools, which is definitely, as everybody knows, that's a huge challenge today. So I think
it is.
Yeah.
Who's writing the CDE Bible, by the way? One central source of truth. Okay.
Yeah. Well, for a long time, people thought it was Revit, and I would laugh at them. Like, yeah, no. So we'll just keep getting bigger.
Yeah, I mean, and we didn't even touch on like some of the other, hardware. It's a little bit more drive topic, but we're dealing with that too. Access control lists, RAID environments that handle at scale, right? And obviously, there's local area networks that are doing RAID options to help deal with automated check-in, check-out process of files. And then there's the cloud solutions. So, there's a whole deep dive there, but, making it global, saying we're going to go global is great as an idea. And then making it happen is a whole nother thing when, you're suddenly finding yourself waking up at 3 a.m. to get on a call. Like what is the blend between technology? Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. And I think there's, we need to use this opportunity for getting the speed back and the connectivity back to actually, also prioritize rejuvenation as human beings and what that looks like. So it's, just because we can do something doesn't mean we should do something. And I'm interested with, there's a whole ethical conversation to mix into this, which is, what is the boundary, right? Because architects have notoriously overworked themselves for the hours they're billing for. And, like we're on this sort of inflection point. Are we going to get more work in our plates just because we can? Are we actually going to find some balance and rhythm in this process, right?
Good question. I want to make sure, because we're running a little bit over time here, that everybody on the call has a chance
please.
to ask final questions here. Lainey, Stephanie, Maurice, Oko, Mark.
I just had a quick question. This is part for Harlan and for Timothy. So this is kind of touching a little bit on what Cesar was mentioning earlier. We both work together at HOK, and so my question is, how does the tech work for smaller design firms? So we talk about, a lot of the conversations are focused towards big firms that have the big budgets that are able to afford X amount, amounts of seats for the whole for Revit and all of the design software and server farms and things like that. But I'm thinking of like smaller firms that are able to are having to try to catch up with this, who have people that are working remotely and things like that, so they don't have the budgets to do that similar type of setups and things like that. So, and I'm thinking, will that exasperate the digital divide? Because we're with the AEC industry, we're pretty slow to adopt. Like a lot of, we had a conversation earlier about some companies that are still using AutoCAD for design. I mean, not using Revit or using BIM. That kills me. But so they're spending a lot of time just trying to catch up to speed, not even getting into gen or comp design or AI or machine learning or anything like that. They're still working in the phases that a lot of us have left behind. And so I see that as that digital divide like growing bigger and bigger. And I guess for Harlan, because you got you and your team talk to a lot of people, or a lot of the people in the industry. Are you finding that to start to become a problem now that people are not in that same? We've gone away from that same traditional way of working. Now it's kind of like the Wild West, and we're all trying to figure out the best way of how to deal with this. So
yeah, Mark.
Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting topic. I don't see it though as like a technology problem really, when it comes to like smaller firms getting tech. I mean, I've had plenty of conversations with small firms who are literally very cutting edge, all using BIM 360, Revit, Mural, VR. They're in, and they're smaller actually, and they're agile and quick. They're trying lots of different things, in that space to help their clients. And actually, one of the reasons they talk about it is it actually kind of empowers them to compete, right? They're a two-person shop, and it lets them do that. The biggest problem with like the digital divide is education, honestly. It's not, and I don't mean like student education or college or anything like that. What I mean is technology interest and kind of passion education, because that's where we tend to see kind of the drop off, right? Of people who, and it kind of comes back to also, I would say profitability becomes a big thing. You guys mentioned billable hours. That's something that as an industry has kind of does push down some of this, because it's all about how do you bill more, right? How do you be more profitable? How do I get projects done quicker so that I make more money on them? And that kind of mindset in smaller firms in particular, when you're dealing with tight projects, tight budgets, it becomes very challenging to, push yourself over the edge of like, I want to go do something new or learn BIM or, pick up VR. You have to have that kind of digital native kind of experience. So I think what'll happen too is the industry gets hopefully younger at some point, like you'll see that start to transition in some respects, right? Because you'll see that. But I mean, what's interesting to me is you go to AIA conferences, for example, and we sit at our booth, I still get questions, what is Revit? Like, what is BIM today? And that's always kind of eye-opening, like, oh, okay, the industry's not, where we probably need it to be in general to move forward. And and you guys in particular are pushing it even farther. So it does kind of create that separation that you mentioned. And it's like, how do you educate people and give them necessarily, I think at the end of the day, the business model that will help them get beyond the idea that I have to, bill per hour necessarily, and instead maybe focus on outcome. Like if the industry started focusing on the outcome of actually building something and actually meeting some results, you might start to see some changes in kind of the mentality of, well, I got to push out, and work 60 hours, like you were saying, Timothy. I mean, that's why I hate to say it. I worked as an architect in the Midwest for a number of years, and I left for tech because I didn't want to do that. And that's what's, that's unfortunate reality too, is you start to push out some of your talent.
Yeah, and that's what I'm starting to see, like hear more and more of, like people that are leaving. They're saying, well, I can work from, we've all heard the story of, people that can work from anywhere. I can work from the beach as long as I have a Wi-Fi or Ethernet cable. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing. It's like, well, like you said, why work 60 hours here when I can make 180 a year and work for a tech company? So there's a couple of people that left from our firm, where I work remotely here in Portland, but I work for an LA firm. And two of the guys that were like, well, bye. One's working for Cisco and the other's off to Oracle. So I'm seeing it from that point of view. I'm definitely seeing of like, well, now there's more opportunities for people to take their skill set and move on. They're not typecast into that one thing. I don't have to sit at a desk with the other 80 people in my office anymore. I can, and now I have options. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, Harlan.
Yeah. I mean, I can happily weigh in on this all day for a while if we wanted to, but I'm in agreement with education, and that's part of, if you see me pop up outside of Gensler branding and other places of the internet, like I'm super passionate about this exact topic, which is building a funnel and a ramp for people to get educated on technology so they have the options, and then re-inspiring why people got into architecture in the first place. And I was just in conversations today with people internal that were saying, I tried way back, I tried to get into Grasshopper and these other things. It was so painful that I just stopped and went over to Revit, learned that, hunkered down and just became like a sort of delivery architect. And, getting them exposed to how I'm using Grasshopper to operate on Revit now has really reignited that passion. And it's saying, well, what other opportunities are there? So I think it's just kind of finding the right pain point to relieve that'll get you the right motivation for people. And then once they get sparked again, building a ramp so that they can find their way quickly into what the firm wants to prioritize, because you can't do everything. So figure out how to, what's essential, and then what are you going to focus on that differentiates your practice. And so it's kind of starting with pain points, alleviating that, then opening up to opportunities, and then helping build the ROI in the process. You definitely have to capture the story as you go, but like Harlan said, being nimble is super valuable because you don't have the overhead of escalating and making requests. And we don't even do trial licenses here at Gensler, so we can't install things. We have to buy, we just have to buy licenses. So how much do you buy? So that creates a barrier, right? And so it's interesting with each, how corporate you get also incorporates other hindrances that small firms actually should be empowered to say, look, we're super nimble. As long as we set our fee structure appropriately, we can definitely prove ourselves as this lightweight, sort of innovative group that can make things happen. So it's just finding how you want to practice and then grow into that new wave. But yeah, it can feel overwhelming until you get into it.
Okay, awesome. Want to thank all the
Yeah.
co-presenters, acknowledge everybody's time here. We've run a little bit over, but it's been a great conversation. And I understand Hee and Harlan, you're going to share your slides afterwards. Tim, you
I'll
may
let
be
you know.
able to do that also. So, and please feel free to follow up with
Please.
anybody who participated today. Okay? All right. I want to give them a hand. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Hee. Thank you, Harlan. And the event next month on the 21st will focus on the design technology behind city models. We know large firms like HOK and SOM have had these in-house, and now that city models are available to everyone in the profession, what can we do with them? Okay.
Awesome.
That's for next time. Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you, everybody.
everyone.
Thank you all. Bye.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.